Welcome, everyone. My name is Torres Legend. Thank you so much for joining us in our ongoing SAP BTP Customer Value Network series. Our current session is Customer Evolution from SAP Process Orchestration to SAP Integration Suite. We have a great agenda lined up for you today, and to kick us off, Mr. Helmut Grimm, Global Vice President, will give us his words of welcome. Helmut?
Yes, thanks, Torres, and welcome to everybody. I see also a few faces from SAP, which I already know, like Arti. Great to have you here as well. I see Damien from Harrod. It's great to see you as well. So let me give you a couple of minutes of an introduction on why we are here and why this is an important topic. So first of all, some words to myself. My name is Helmut Grimm. It's now the 22nd year with SAP. And I'm leading, as Torres mentioned, the primary core platform growth initiatives team, but now I'm leading the strategy office, and which is a bit of a bigger responsibility within the technology and innovation board area, which is the development board area where we are basically developing all the BTP services. Why I'm so happy to be here, and especially for the process integration and process orchestration migration, is also a bit of history, because I have been, as mentioned, with SAP for 22 years, but I have been at least 5 to 7 years an integration architect, and I was also the business development lead for process integration and process orchestration. So that's why I'm very happy to see on how we are growing and how we are moving our customers in this direction. Under my responsibility, probably also something to add is overall the on-premise to cloud migration responsibility for all technical services, all technical products, because for us it is really important that we are taking you on the journey to the cloud. This is a very important aspect, and the aspect is that we also want to, for sure, keep your investments, which you have done in the on-premise world, and moving it over in the best way possible to the cloud world. This includes, for sure, migration tooling, migration assets, migration guidance, accelerators, service offerings, etc. So you can do this in a smooth way, but also according, and this is also what I like at the case from Harrod, is that you do this according to the pace you want to do it, and to grow with ourselves and together with our roadmap. And also some more words, because it's process integration, process orchestration is so dear to my heart. It's for us, it is so important. We have such a big install base, especially with process integration and process orchestration. So we want to make it really as seamless as possible for you to move into a public cloud and a native public cloud integration offering from SAP. But I don't want to steal more minutes from this interesting topic and hand directly over to Arti and to Damien at this stage. Thanks a lot for being with us.
Thanks, Helmut.
Thank you, Helmut.
Go ahead,
with
Arti.
that, Doros, can I share my screen?
Sure. Let me stop my share.
Thank you. So Hello, everybody. A warm welcome from my end as well. As Helmut expressed, this is definitely something as a topic that we are all excited about, and very happy that Damien from Harrods is joining us in sharing his outlook on how the journey with Harrods has been, what exactly has their outlook been as they evolve from the previous middleware that we had from SAP Process Orchestration to SAP Integration Suite, right? So this is definitely, so from an agenda point of view, this was already shared by Toro, so I'm going to skip this and get right into the details. So from an integration standpoint, this particular slide, some of you may be familiar with the image on this particular slide. At SAP, we have been talking about our vision of becoming an intelligent, sustainable enterprise, or helping our customers build a network of intelligent, sustainable enterprises. And from an end-to-end perspective, we realized that if the value chain has to be strengthened and has to be, optimized to deliver this intelligent, sustainable enterprise. The focus has to be on the core businesses, which spans not just inside that particular organization, but also spans across the customers, the partners that make up the whole value chain. From SAP's point of view, we have the four core business processes that has been already identified and has been talked about at large from an intelligent enterprise standpoint. And we do realize that each of these processes breaks down into multiple sub-processes. So we have covered the solution areas, and we have multiple SAP solutions which are catering to the requirements of each of these expectations of, be it spend management or human capital management. And we have definitely been leveraging the BTP suite qualities of consistent user experience, one workflow inbox, to strengthen this, the experience finally the end user has across all these solution areas, to give one tech kind of a feel, right, when you are consuming these solutions. But we, at the end of the day, we also understand that if you're looking at the entire value chain, it is not just made up of SAP solutions. You have partner solutions, you have third-party solutions, you have also niche point solutions that are homegrown, right? And all of these come together as part of any end-to-end process. And one of the core things when we talk about any of these end-to-end processes is the information flow, right? Seamless information flow, which is reliable in nature, which is secure when you are communicating from one application to another. And this is where integration becomes the key or the foundational layer that supports the end-to-end processes. So this is what has been iterated multiple times by our leadership as well. And as you can see from the blogs, the strategy papers, and the other content which have been talked about from SAP, we repeat the phrase, an intelligent enterprise is an integrated enterprise, right? So there is this is where our vision is heading. This is where integration is playing a fundamental role and is being also observed across the organization as the key pillar of SAP strategy. That being said, let me also take you through the evolution, right? Some of you here may already be familiar with the evolution of integration platform at SAP and how we have been supporting it over the last 2 decades, to be exact, right? We have had the initial market entry with SAP XI, Exchange Infrastructure, way back in 2003. And from then on, one of the core focuses at SAP has always been to continuously innovate our integration platform to meet the requirements as the customers' landscapes have evolved as well. Right, we had the process integration and the process orchestration, which had evolved over time, right, from moving away from ABAP to dual stack to a single stack Java stack, platform that was being provided, which was able to then expand its functionality from just being a process integration layer to BPM and other business rules management, for example, all of them coming together as part of SAP process orchestration, which also then started supporting business to business innovation. We started providing out of the box content for business to government integrations. This were all something that we had rich history in focusing upon. And then in sometime in 2011-12 timeframe, we launched the SAP HANA Cloud Integration, as it was then known. Right, we made sure that one of the core propositions of SAP, with its rich history of 50 years, where we understand the processes, we understand what are those integrations that are required by most of our customers. We have identified these and we have standardized these and provided them as pre-built content. So this has been our focus from the very start, when the cloud offering of integration platform from SAP was shared. right? And we have been constantly working on it. And as of today, you may know that 2000, close to 2,600 pre-built integrations, which are ready to be used as they are already available on SAP API Business Hub, right? We have been making sure that this value proposition from SAP is definitely being continuously focused upon and invested upon. And over time, as heterogeneous landscapes evolved, as the hybrid landscapes evolved, as the need of newer integration patterns came into being, the API-based integrations, the event-based integrations, we also have the the services, the capabilities that were invested upon API management, SAP Event Mesh, the integration advisor, which using the AI-based crowdsourcing of logic message mapping specifically came into being, and these assistance services, not just capabilities like API management and event mesh, but also assistance services and acceleration services were started becoming our points of um, basically investments, right? And we had brought them all together by 2020, 2 years back. We brought them all under the umbrella of SAP Integration Suite. So as of today, when you look at SAP Integration Suite, you would see all these names that you have been hearing from SAP, right? Cloud integration for your message transformation, for your routing logic, for your security, when it comes to making sure that the seamless exchange of information across applications, any to any applications, right, are happening in a very reliable fashion and a scaled out fashion because of the definitely the cloud, uh, you know, um, cloud capabilities that have been brought in. We have the API management, which ensures that there is a governance to and as well as a visibility to how the APIs are being shared as well as being consumed across your ecosystem, across your partners, across your customers, as well as internally inside an organization, right? There are the concepts of private APIs and public APIs that are being invested on by every organization as of today. And the question is, of how do you keep a track? How do you keep a visibility into how the consumption happens? How do you also understand the consumption patterns and evolve on these APIs, right? So gone are the days just where API gateway was a necessity. It is much more evolved now with the security policies being put on the same layer as the API proxy. You have the aspects of monitoring the performance, right? Basically getting an analysis and analytics on top of the performance, on the errors that are being observed, and how you can improve and optimize the API consumption as well. And to further talk about, you also have the developer engagement, which is a core requirement, which also comes under the same definition as API management today. We have the capability of trading partner management, which was introduced in the in end of last year, right? So December last year, we had also made the trading partner management GA. And we are further evolving the concept of trading partner management to support your B2B integration needs. We have the advanced event mesh, which was launched as of this year, right? June of 2022, end of June, in fact. And this is basically going to further enhance the event-based integration, which definitely complements our cloud integration capabilities. And then we have the accelerators such as the open connectors, which ensures that you are easily connecting in a very simplified manner with 170 odd non-SAP applications which are out there, simplifying how you access these applications, access the data via the APIs that they have in a normalized fashion across all the applications, right? Really, from an integration development point of view, reducing the learning curve for a developer on understanding the different applications which are out there, understanding how the APIs have to be consumed, the different API security expectations or batch operation expectations that are out there. Right, so really simplifying the whole journey when you are developing an integration from or to a non-SAP application. Then we have the accelerator in the form of integration advisor, which I already mentioned, which is an assistance service for an integration developer. As you may, if you have been working and developing integrations, you know that one of the major development efforts goes into creating message mappings, especially in the process orchestration world. If you have been familiar with creating message mappings, that is also something that we will talk about later on how the same message mappings can be used with integration suite as well, right? So this is the reason why message mappings is such a also something which is effort consuming, is because it is prone to human errors when you are basically creating a logic between the sender and receiver, the format they may have, the hundreds of objects that are there, and you are making sure that you are ensuring that the information, there is no loss of information when it is getting sent from the sender to the receiver. The message mapping plays a very important role in the whole transformation exercise. And here, with the crowdsourced AI ML based assistant service that has been introduced, it ensures that message mapping is created in a much more faster manner, and also because the proposal is coming from the application itself, from the system itself, you are at least trying to avoid the human error as much as possible. And then we have also launched the integration assessment capability as of this year, right? The idea of the integration assessment is very similar to the integration solution advisory methodology, which existed from SAP for some time now. It is to support our enterprise architects. The idea is that every organization definitely needs an integration strategy. As the heterogeneity is increasing, the hybrid environments are increasing, your landscapes has more and more applications which are communicating with each other. There is definitely a need to focus on an enterprise-wide integration strategy and governance practice. And integration assessment capability, which is now a tool form of the solution advisory methodology, helps the enterprise architect in defining the rules that have to be applied as a best practice across an organization. And this becomes the guiding principles that any developer who wants to create, who starts creating and developing, to address a specific integration scenario, can leverage this, and it becomes pertinent to have such guidance, have such best practices applied, not just created, but also visibly there for integration developers to refer and consume, right? And this as a tooling rather than as a documentation is from our end, from the conversations we have had with our customers and partners in the past, is seen as an effective way of conveying the same across the enterprise, across the developers in the organization. With that, a quick view into how we are supporting. So far, what you have been hearing me talk about is the full flexibility and the holistic integration that is supported with SAP Integration Suite as a platform offering from SAP. But I would like to emphasize the fact that one of the big value propositions that SAP has to offer, in addition to this extremely flexible tool set, capability set, is the fact that we have identified the different integration needs, which are part of any end-to-end process, any business process which exists across our customers' landscapes, the different lines of businesses that are there in any organization. And based on our rich experience from an application standpoint, we have identified and have been constantly addressing the different integration needs by providing pre-built integrations. What it basically means is that any developer can, in an organization, can get started by consuming these pre-built integrations and ensure the information flow happens across the applications. And it is not just, and we call this the standard integrations, right? And but we do not restrict the developers the flexibility to consume them and customize these integration flow. The logic which is inbuilt is also provided, which means you can use our tool set, our capabilities, to further enhance, write the custom logic which is appropriate for that particular enterprise, and get that running in your landscape as well. Right? So this full flexibility is available. And the pre-built integrations, we have identified 2,500 scenarios and have addressed these integration running in your landscape is that these are built, delivered, and maintained by SAP, which means that in the future, if there are any updates from an application standpoint, that will immediately get notified to you as an integration developer, and you can consume them, you can validate and consume them in your landscapes, right? It makes it much more simpler from a governance standpoint to have well-maintained integrations running in your organization. Okay, now coming to the specific focus of today, which is process orchestration to integration suite, and what is our recommendation. So we have been talking about SAP Integration Suite as the way forward. It is definitely, from a vision perspective, from a strategy perspective, the platform from SAP that we are investing upon. We have already announced, as of 2019 timeframe, we had already announced about sunsetting SAP NetWeaver, and along with it, the process orchestration as well by 2027. Right, so SAP NetWeaver process orchestration 7.5 and the versions which were released beyond that will all be sunsetted by with the end of mainstream maintenance is has been announced to be 2027, and extended maintenance by 2030. Right, so it is from that point of view, we have also been calling out on the fact that SAP Integration Suite is where the investments are happening at this point in time. And considering that, the first recommendation from our end is definitely to build all your new integrations using SAP Integration Suite, the modern features which are available to support all the evolving integration patterns in the industry, in across the market. We have the pre-built integrations that was emphasized in the previous slide. We have 200 plus connectors, accelerators that we deliver as part of the platform itself to ensure that you have a speed with which you can deliver the newer integrations that are evolving, being identified to address your transformation needs, your innovation needs. Right. The second a recommendation from our end definitely is that if you are part of the RISE journey, if you are, if you are starting your S4HANA projects, or you are planning to start in the near term from the S4HANA projects, definitely if you have been using process orchestration as part of your integration landscape, then it definitely makes sense, to start moving away from the custom developed integrations and start using the standard integrations delivered and maintained by SAP. At the same time, we would like to emphasize that your investments in process orchestration will definitely not go in vain. We understand both the platforms have come from SAP, while underlying architecture of both are different. We have ensured that the concepts across the two platforms have remained the same. And we have also ensured that the artifacts that have been built on process orchestration can be basically imported and reused in the newer platform that we are providing, which is SAP Integration Suite. Right. So this is something that we have been focusing upon. So our second recommendation is, if you have already existing integration scenarios on process orchestration, SAP is definitely going to support you in the move. And so it is also something that you should start planning and start executing on how you can move these integrations onto the SAP Integration Suite. In the next section, right after Harrod's, after Damien has shared his experience on the move, you will also hear me talk about some of the tools and the services that are available from SAP as well as from our partners to accelerate this particular move, and that you can leverage. Right, from a content perspective, we are definitely, as I mentioned earlier, we have the reuse of assets that is being focused upon, so that it reduces at least 50% of the work, right? And then we also have, for implementers, we have multiple documentation, methodology, guidelines, which have been published over time, that will definitely be of core help, right? And then the third one that I would like to call out as part of our, how we see the customer evolution journey, is the use of, in the case of on-premise to on-premise scenarios. This has also been something that has, been constantly asked by our customers. We understand that you may have built on-premise to on-premise scenarios, and you do not want your integrations or the information to flow out of your existing landscape, your environment of choice, to a public tool, public platform, and then processed on this layer which is outside your own landscape. Understandably so, and here we are investing, and we are what we are calling as the hybrid deployment of runtime. We are calling it the Edge Integration Cell. This is the new name which has been assigned to this hybrid deployment runtime. The idea is that you are, so this is the next generation runtime that we are envisioning at SAP Integration Suite. We are already in the beta phase. The beta program has already been started for the Edge Integration Cell. It will run for 6 months. And so by H2 2023, the next year, you will also have, hear from us about the general availability of the Edge Integration Cell. Right. So the idea of the hybrid deployment runtime is that there is going to be a lightweight runtime which can be deployed by a customer in a container of their choice. At this point in time, we are supporting AWS and Azure Kubernetes, right? So the idea is that you can run this, you can deploy this runtime in EKS or AKS at this point in time, and it will further also be more containers will also be supported in the future. The idea is that you design your integrations, your design your API proxies, as well as the events on the cloud layer, the web-based developer environment, which is available as part of the cloud, giving you the flexibility to collaborate with your team members, right? And the ease of use when you are creating the integrations itself. But at the same time, you have the opportunity to either run it on the public cloud that is managed by SAP, or you have the option to run it in a container of choice in the environment that you have within your organization as well. So this is the edge integration cell that we are, envisioning and will be making available by H2 2023 as well. That being said, so when you heard me speak on the different recommendations on our strategy on how we are supporting even the on-premise to on-premise integrations, a hybrid runtime, from a customer evolution journey perspective, we have been observing these three forms of transitions, right? Options of transitions for our customers as well. One is definitely a complete migration where a customer can pick and migrate all their scenarios in their process orchestration over to Integration Suite. We have seen this in our customers like American Styrenics. We have a customer reference also published by them, right, where they had moved their interfaces without any disruption of their businesses, without any with a zero downtime, right, and with zero issues post going live as well in a period of 12 weeks. They had done this from PI 7.4 to SAP Integration Suite in a period of 12 weeks with the help of our partners, Info. And this is one of the stories that we will also be sharing later. We have option 2, which is where you do not move your interfaces as they are into Integration Suite, right? But you further look at your processes, look at how they can be improved, how they can be modernized, how they can be optimized to run on the cloud integration platform that is available from SAP, and you migrate your interfaces in a phased approach to the SAP Integration Suite. The option is to then have a hybrid approach, basically, and this is what you will also hear from Harrod on how they are not just looking at moving the interfaces as they are running on process orchestration, but further enhancing it and making sure that they have processes that are suiting their digital transformation requirements as well. And then the local runtime or the hybrid runtime that I have been talking about, edge integration cell. Once it is available, you have the holistic solution from SAP as well, where you can not just run your cloud to cloud, cloud to on-premise, on-premise to cloud, but also your on-premise to on-premise integrations that you want to run in a specific environment of choice, right, internally in your organization. That is also going to be supported very soon. With that, let me hand it over to Damien and let him take you through his experience.
So Arti, before we hand it over to Damien, there's a number of questions. Do you want to answer these now, or do you want to do them later? If some of them are quick.
Do we have time to
Yeah, we have time. Yes, we have a couple of minutes.
Sure. So let me start
so
looking
the question
at this.
here, we have a question from Google Pixel. Is SAP Advanced EM part of Integration Suite now?
So let me take that up. So at this point from a branding perspective, the Advanced Event Mesh is definitely part of Integration Suite. From a commercial standpoint, Advanced Event Mesh is available in CPEA right? And you can basically explore. There are different options available based on the deployment pattern that you want, where the event broker, where you want the event broker to be available. How many events do you see flowing through in your organization, and various other constraints. You can select which of the plans suits your needs, and you can basically enable it. So this is something which is available as part of our CPEA, which is pay as you go kind of a option that is available from SAP.
Okay, and then one from Srini: is integration assessment a new functionality? If you can please share details.
Yes, Srini. So integration assessment is a new capability on SAP Integration Suite. So it is a tooling version of the integration solution advisory methodology that you may be familiar with, right? It is basically a 3-step approach to defining your enterprise-wide best practice and governance, where you start by identifying the integration domains that are relevant for your organization, identifying which are the patterns that are relevant, what kind of integration use cases are emerging in your organization, and depending on that, identifying the toolings that are available from SAP, be it process integration, be it API management, be it open connectors, or even data integration and the likes of it, right? Or if you are, for example, identifying a use case where you have on-premise to cloud integration, you will be prescribed on the toolings that are required from cloud connector perspective to which of the integration pattern suits your need, whether it is event mesh or API management, etc. So it creates a nice framework that can be understood by the integration architect, and as well as helps you in creating new rules that can be spread across your organization via the integration suite layer itself. So it creates an end-to-end governance of integration practice.
Okay, awesome. There's a number of more. Maybe you can answer them while Damien is doing his session.
Yes, for sure.
Okay, great. Thank you
I'll
so
take that
much, Srini. So thank you, Damien, for your patience. If you want to continue with your session, that'd be great.
Yeah, thank you very much, Doris. Yeah, thanks as well, Artie. Great to see the continuous progression of Integration Suite. Speaking as a customer there, it's great to see the new features and advances all the time. Yeah. Also quite shocking to see XI is 20 years old. makes me feel I'm getting on. But anyway, hello to everyone. Yeah, my name is Damien. I'm here to share a little bit of the Harrod's experience from our migration from SAP PI onto Integration Suite. I think I'll speak for about 20 minutes or so. So just maybe a quick overview on what that's going to contain. A little bit about Harrod's to give you a context of a business and what we do, a little bit about me, a review or overview of our current architecture, a little bit about our migration activities and some of the lessons learned, and looking ahead to the future from integration standpoint in Harrod's. Okay. Yeah, so just want to give people a little bit of context when we speak about Harrod's, who we are. We're a luxury retailer based out of London. These are some shots taken from our flagship store based in Knightsbridge. So Harrod's is a luxury retailer with a very long tradition, dating back to the 1800s. As you might see, for example, from the food halls here, very decadent and glorious surroundings. Also, I think relevant to say that even though there's a lot of tradition in Harrod's, there's a lot of evolution as well. Right from the Harrod's store, you can see there's continuous investment in the look of the building, in the features added throughout. Yeah, Harrod's is well known for its flagship store in London, but actually there are more stores. There's Harrod's Beauty throughout England, and there's the stores down to China, etc. So we, as well as the digital experience, so it's a global name, as well as you know, the stores itself. Harrods are investing heavily in digitization. So take an example of the Harrods reward system. It's a lot of digital cards, etc., through the digital app. A lot of user experience engagement through omni-channel experience. And a lot of investment in back-end IT systems. We're lucky to have CIO and a head of digital that are very progressive in that way and support a lot of features and initiatives in those areas. Okay, so yeah, we can move to the next slide, Artie. It's just a couple of points about myself. I'm an integration architect in Harrods. That's the loose term because I'm involved in all things integration, really, from project planning to defining the roadmap for the year, to project delivery, estimates, and right down to BAU and operational things. I've been in Harrods over 7 years. I started off as an employee in Harrods for quite a number of years. That's evolved. That's evolved a little over the last few years, where it's we've moved into more of a partnership where I have a service contract with Harrods and with the small team in place there. Okay, so we'll take a look at the architecture in Harrods. Some of the components you would have mentioned, Artie, in your overview, which we're making the most of in Harrods, at least attempt to make the most of. We have the integration suite there, which we're exposing a number of APIs to third-party and external partners through API management. We're heavily using CPI and the features of CPI. A lot of our integrations are JMS based, although we do use more or less every protocol available, from JDBC, SFTP, etc., etc. We have some event mesh scenarios as well. We're also currently reviewing the advanced event mesh, open connectors, as well as HANA DB for any third-party translations, etc. We have well, should we speak about process visibility for a moment? Yeah, I guess just to take one step back, you know, we've been on this journey of a number of years now, so you know it's almost deep in the memory at this stage. But it was a very critical decision for Harrods, moving off PO and on to CPI at that time, CPI and NEO for us. Yeah, it's been quite a while since the transition, but we've continually evolved since that time. So now we're moving into the areas really of self-service for business users. We've done a lot of that through process visibility dashboards. I think I include a screenshot towards the end of the presentation. But for example, order tracking, article tracking for the end-to-end article creation process. So we're doing integration, but we're also keeping in mind some of the advanced features around process visibility, etc. So we continue to maintain on-premise systems, even though our architecture roadmap is very much cloud-based. I won't say exclusively cloud-based, but you know, a lot of the applications are the evolution of the Harrods integration in general, are cloud-based systems where we're partnering with best-of-breed solutions, etc. So it's a lot of our integration now is cloud to cloud, but we do also cloud to on-premise. You know, we still have a core SAP backbone on-premise through our ERP and EWM systems. as well as on-premise to on-premise, which is a number of integrations that are reducing over time. But following SAP best practice, we're securing those connections through the Harrod's, through the SAP Cloud Connector. I call it Harrod's, it's so familiar to me now. But it's SAP Cloud Connectors, reverse proxies into our on-premise or hosted systems. To give people an idea of a number of integrations, we have in the hundreds of integrations, processing, many millions of transactions through API management and CPI on a weekly basis. Okay, so maybe we'll go to the next slide, Artie. We can just continue to build the picture. So like I say, when we started the journey, it was a case of reviewing our existing infrastructure and evaluating if it was fit for purpose for the multitude of projects that were in the pipeline. So there was quite an initiative from Harrod's to evolve the general architecture in Harrod's, to review the HR systems, the CRM systems, etc., that were in place. As well as that, there was a strategic shift to an e-commerce platform, a partnership, and to allow us to do that, we needed a pretty rock solid integration layer. We needed to be able to integrate on a best practice approach, with our partners, and best practice meaning, exposing APIs in a standard format through OpenAPI, allowing security protocols to lay on top of that, like OAuth 2 authentication, etc. To do that, we felt we needed an iPaaS solution to do that, an API management layer, and that would have been a challenge with SAP PI. And you can continue to hit the things, Artie, if you don't mind. But so to just touch on our existing SAP PI platform, it was a single point of failure. It was non-resilient. Although it was SAP PI 7.4, which I've worked in companies where it's been older versions, still running fine, of course. But we didn't really have an opportunity to patch it, not on a regular cycle, and because of that, we were missing features. Very difficult to take the system down, and resulting in a business outage. If we can go to the next one, please, Artie. Yeah. So just leading into whatever approaches we took on as part of the project. Just to say, what made that decision for us as part of Integration Suite was some of the obvious features, actually, that that was a consolidated platform for APIs, for orchestration. It was the resilience we got out of the box, the support from SAP and the scalability, the number of nodes needed to support our business on the platform. We felt that we'd be able to leverage the new features that were coming every second week as part of releases. And I think, going back to Artie's presentation, we continue to see that from SAP. So just to touch on our approach, Artie, your slide is very nice, defining three approaches. That's very defined. I can say our approach at the time was we didn't sit down and think of 1, 2, or 3. For us, it was very clear. It was a strategic thing that was going to support business needs and demands with the upcoming projects. As well as that, we knew that we had an infrastructure running on SAP PI. We felt that a lot of the architectural decisions the strategy mentioned would help us map up those integrations. So yeah, that's largely the case, which we continue to do. So those integrations are reviewed as each part of each project that we launch, for example, to see are there existing SAP PO integrations, and can we migrate them as part of that project. So I think, you know, over the last 2 years that number has gone down to really just a handful of integrations. Also, probably just to mention, you know, we don't specifically look at it as a like for like migrations often, you know, because we're moving towards more API driven infrastructure. We're looking to reusability. So we'd like to expose services that can be reused by one or many partners. And for that reason, you know, we don't look specifically at, you know, will we do it like for like? Although saying that, there are many message mappings, etc., that we have imported from the on-premise ESR into our iFlows as we do migrate. So that feature we have used. Okay, anything else there, Artie, to go? Yeah, just mentioned was no migration tools are even approaches available at the time we started the journey. Okay, yeah, that's perfect, Artie. You can load them all. Thank you.
All of them. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, so some of the lessons learned, you know, honestly, I may have put some of these down at the time, but at the time we were doing migration, but I think many of them hold true today as well. So, you know, developers moving from traditional SAP PO approaches, we have adapted more design pattern approaches. So be it request, reply, content enrich, etc. Maybe very well established now. In fact, you know, probably even well established prior to SAP CPI, but it has or was a transition for some developers who were very used to doing things in specific ways. There was a lot of questions on, yeah, how can this be done? Trying to think like for like, but you know, there was once developers got more familiar with the tool set, of course, they began to adapt it and grow to love it, of course. I mentioned log and tracing, payload search, and message retry. These are all critical things for integration. Some of them out of the box with SAP PO. Some of them need wider consideration when migrating onto Integration Suite. How to log your messages, how long to store them, how to identify specific payloads or specific transactions on a payload search, and critically how to persist messages for retry. Yeah, these were key considerations for us as part of migration. You know, I mentioned message retry. We use JMS heavily to persist data to allow us to replay transactions in the event of failure on recipient systems, etc. So all those things, I think, need careful consideration. I mentioned here more than integration. You know, for us at the point of onboarding, and I'm sure it's true for many people on the call who've moved to B2P, there was a lot of learning up front required to define the landscape, the architecture, right from how do we instantiate services, how many tenants do we need, you know, consumption-based licensing, how that all works. So there was quite a learning curve for us on that. So, you know, hence I call out the point, it's, you know, just not thinking about development and migration. It's about the wider picture of license and tenants and everything else. As well as that, I mentioned service management, more peripheral stuff around the integration. Our support, our SMO team were very eager to understand SLAs, uptimes, etc. on the platform, and how we adhere to those SLAs, how we report and monitor against them, you know, what's offered in terms of high availability and disaster recovery. And finally, I mentioned roles here in the transition. You know, a lot of people at that time, at least, were very specific to how we operated as a business, was very clear cut in terms of responsibilities across basis and integration. There was a little bit of transition needed there to clearly define roles and responsibilities, you know, across teams. Okay, yeah, we can go to the next slide, please, Artie.
So there are a few questions online already. Damien, do you want to take them up, or do you want to hold till the end of the session?
I'm happy to take them up, Artie. Yeah.
Okay. Roberto asks, how are you supporting the logging, tracing, payload search capability in CPI at Harrods?
Logging, we generally, I think the answer is to do it by Groovy scripting. So logging payloads, the way we've done it has been, you know, evolved over time. So we add scripts to log, then they can be added anywhere in the iFlow. We've evolved it a little bit in the sense that we have externalized parameters to turn on and off logging. We do that because you know, we don't want to overload the MPLs with log data. So we can, you know, switch it to on or off and redeploy that iFlow as needed. Payload search, again, can be done through header search and scripting. As well as that, we set the application ID, which is a specific camel header, to allow, you know, for example, if we have a track in a particular order, we want to see where in the process it is, from order create to payment to PGI, and we can put that order number into the search bar, and because it's set in the iFlows as the application ID, it'll show results for that. I don't know if the question also included message retry, Artie, or no.
Yeah, but now that you have started on this particular topic, there are a few other questions also on logging and tracing, as well as on alerting and monitoring to you, Damien, right?
Yeah.
So there is one question on, are you using SAC CPI APIs? I think here the question is around SAP Analytics Cloud. And there is a feature of creating the dashboard easily using the CPI APIs, right? I'm assuming that is the question here. Yeah, Naga.
Yeah, we are, Artie. We're using the Analytics Cloud dashboard to consume the MPL and give us an insight into messaging. That's
awesome.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, that helps.
Yeah, that's one of the blogs. I think I forget the name of the gentleman exactly. I did have the pleasure of meeting him once, but yeah, we were using that dashboard.
Awesome. Yeah, I think it was Sunny Kapoor, or maybe
That's
one
right,
from
Sunny.
another team.
Yes, yeah.
Sunny, yeah, great. And there is one about alerting and monitoring. I'm just calling it out in the similar context. I think one of the challenges in CPI is the lack of alerting and limited monitoring. How are you getting around these challenges? Miguel is asking this question.
Yeah, it's a good question, Miguel. We had similar concerns when we went live around alerting and monitoring. Yeah, again, it's evolved from our side. A lot of it through build. We have alerting on well, three areas really. Number one, we have custom iFlows that will read the MPL logs. We have that iFlow will parse the MPL logs for particular errors, and then using the alert framework, which is a service in B2P. We notify certain people through emails of those particular failures. So that's one thing. Second thing is we similarly parsing the MPL logs. We have specific threshold alerts. So say, for example, we're not getting any messages on an iFlow for the last 30 minutes, for example. We're not receiving any picks or packs from the warehouse. We will generate an alert based on that. These alerts, we have an on-premise tool we're using called PagerDuty, which will call the on-call person. So we through an API call, we generate a ticket in that, which will do the appropriate call outs, etc. The third thing we're looking at is currently, those two solutions mentioned work well. We pick up those alerts as part of our twice daily health checks, go through any failed messages generated as part of those alerts. There are parts we still do manually, like reviewing dashboards, reviewing the API management dashboard, seeing if there's anything untoward there. But most stuff we are logging for review and either automatically creating alert notifications or through manual health checks. We're also considering integration to a third party, Dynatrace, to see where that can help facilitate identification of errors. In fact, in some of the areas, it's already been done. Some of the digital applications within Harrods are logging response times from our API, either response failures, 500s, 404s, etc., into Dynatrace for consumption, and that off the back of that will, trigger alerting processes. We're also looking at ALM actually at the moment as well. So yeah, that's part of the next stages for us to evolve that a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. And I do understand this is like a hot topic. So I'm going to pause on the monitoring aspects and move on to the other question, which is around JMS. So Roberto asked, are you planning to replace JMS and introduce event streaming or mesh as part of your integration strategy? If not, why? It starts with that. And there are a few more questions around JMS queues, right? Abhinav says, hey, you mentioned using JMS queues extensively. How are you managing the queue depth and the total queue size limitations? I see these couple of questions around the eventing aspects and as well as asynchronous access, basically.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, guys. So just to explain at a high level, perhaps, the use of JMS, and of course, when we started on this journey, event mesh was not really an offering. But to take, for example, which is a critical transaction from our e-commerce layer, which is an order. We expose that as an API, but the first thing we do with it on receipt is persist it onto a JMS queue. That JMS queue more or less allows us to guarantee delivery into our back-end systems through, the standard features of exponential, retry, etc. So they're not patterns we would look to replace with event mesh. We would see event mesh specifically for use cases within a pattern of publish subscribe, really. So I guess we still see event mesh and JMS working side by side. So I don't know if that completely answers that one, RT, but we see it. See both solutions still as applicable to us, at least in Harrods.
Yes, from the product management perspective also, I completely am aligned with that thought process, right, Damian? So we do not see it replacing each other from a use case standpoint. JMS has its own, scenarios that gets addressed, asynchronous scenarios, ensuring, the guaranteed delivery aspects and other specific, use cases that are requirement when you're building integrations. And then event mesh mesh is much more of the eventing service, where you can also create, publish, and subscribe to different events, including and mainly the SAP events that are available. And then you have the complementary AEM, which is much more definitely a higher order event mesh, which is available, where there is more flexibility on how you deploy your event brokers and how you consume your events at a much larger scale across an organization in different geological locations, or it could be that you have multiple environments where you have multiple events flowing in, and you want complete visibility across all these events which are flowing in across different regions, different entities of an organization, right? So there are multiple levels to it, and I would say every feature, every capability has its own specific use cases and how you want to leverage it in your organization.
Yeah.
Thank
you, Artie. I would just say perhaps one use case in eventing we might have in Harrods is door swipes, for example. They're high volume specific events when somebody swipes in or out of a building, and there's numerous consumers to those events, and they're quite business critical because, they can be related to payments of people, when they check in and check out of the building kind of thing. So that we would see as a more applicable scenario for event-driven architecture.
In the interest of time, Damian, shall we move on to the next slide? And if there is more time, we can take up more questions as well.
Absolutely, yeah. I'll go through the next slides pretty quick, I think. Okay. Similarly, well, I just mentioned here, it's maybe an older slide. It was great satisfaction for us at the time in delivering a new landscape for Harrods on the integration platform. It's generally been well received, I think. At the time, there was a lot of consternation around decisions. You showed us a timeline, Artie, earlier from XI to PI, PO onto HCI. I think I wouldn't be shot down for saying HCI early versions had some concerns. Those concerns were relayed to us in Harrods, but I think fair to say, partly based on our good relationship with SAP and through our success manager Robbie, who's done a great job for us. We've kind of gone from strength to strength, really. Just a few points to looking ahead, what we're planning to do next in Harrods. We want to standardize our portal as for API discovery and make that more user friendly. You mentioned the integration, the ISAM tool, which is moved into the integration suite as an offering. We really love that. We felt the ISAM as a PowerPoint was very slide heavy, but reviewing the new solution for doing that as part of the guidelines on integration suite itself, we're big fans of that. So we plan to make use of that. And just to mention there also, I think integration landscapes are generally, becoming more and more offerings, but that makes things a little bit more complex to define the tool for the case. We've recently started also using data intelligence, so we need to clearly define which tools are right for which job. So we feel that that's going to help us a lot. I touched on self-service stuff earlier. We've invested a lot in PV and process visibility. We've done 8 or 10 dashboards across product publishing, image tracking, etc., to allow end users to do their own self-service. The last thing for us is RPA. We feel integration and automation are two closely related topics. We have a lot of stuff like health checks, brand onboarding, etc., that require a lot of manual work. We're going to review and invest some time in reviewing how we can leverage some of the RPA tool sets. Last slide, I think, Artie, maybe a couple of pictures on that. You know, the first is a picture of our PV dashboard. This is all test data, by the way. So, you know, just giving us insights on our integration layer. You know, you can see at the top, we can search and order numbers or various different attributes of the order, as well as, you know, events driven by the integration layer to give us some insights as well, orders across months and what delivery types customers are selecting, etc. On the bottom right is our API hub, personalized to us. You know, the standard API management layer allows us to personalize a little bit, which is nice. You know, it allows business users or consumers to view our published APIs. You know, and then just a screenshot basically of you know, the technology guidance that we're planning to make some use of. So yeah, lots in the pipeline to keep us busy in integration and Harrods to take the service forward. I'm happy to go back to any questions, Artie, or hand back to yourself, or whatever you feel is the best next step.
Okay, thank you so much, Damien.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank you,
go ahead,
Doris.
Artie.
Thank you, Damien. So I was thinking, if everybody is fine with it, let me quickly jump into the next few slides that we have, where we share about the tools and what exactly SAP has to offer in the context of migration. As Damien mentioned very nicely, the Harrods has been approaching the whole migration with a specific lens of improving also their landscape, the interfaces that they have had in the past, and how they are trying to optimize and improve their processes as well, right? But there are definitely tools and services that are available from SAP if you are looking at it as a move of the interfaces that are running in your organization today to Integration Suite as they are, right? And so here, and that could be also an approach that you would be wanting to take, depending on the choice, depending on how your processes are running, right? So this for this, SAP is facilitating by making available quite a set of tools, as you can see on the screen, right? We are focusing on the three aspects we understand are, part of any customer's evolution journey. One is assessing the landscape to understand which are those assets which have been built on process orchestration that can be moved as they are to Integration Suite, right? And so basically an asset reuse, as I was calling out, has always been a focus, and we have made sure that from a development standpoint, when a customer starts on this journey, the first thing that we started addressing is how can we make sure that the artifacts that were developed on process orchestration can also be supported in Integration Suite, and to help making this assessment whether the reusability is supported, or if there is an adaptation that needs to be done by the development on your end, or if because the underlying architecture is extremely different on process orchestration and Integration Suite, if there are artifacts which have been built, for example, custom adapters which had been built on process orchestration, in which case how do you rebuild the same on Integration Suite, right? So we have this kind of an assessment which is automated, and it basically ensures that all you have to do is it will be available as part of Integration Suite. First of all, let me start with the first question that may be running in your mind. It is going to be a free tool which is going to be part of Integration Suite, right? Another capability which will be there, which you can enable and run at your convenience. The idea of this particular tooling is that it will allow you via the cloud connector to connect to the SAP process orchestration in your landscape, and fetch the design time artifacts, the metadata into the integration suite, the migration assessment capability, and using the rules that we have built into this particular capability, it will run these hundreds of rules that we have already invested and added into the assessment tooling. It will generate a report giving you an idea of what are all those artifacts that have been built on process orchestration, which can be reused, those which needs to be edited a little to suit integration suite, or those which will have to be really looked at from an expert's point of view to see how it can be used or redesigned on integration suite. So this particular assessment report will give you an idea of how you can then plan and scope your whole migration project, right? Giving you a kind of a roadmap, acceleration on the road mapping exercise that you will obviously do as part of your migration planning. Right. So this is just to add, we have launched a beta program as of September 2022, and we have, it going through the feedback cycles as any beta program would have it. At this point in time, it's a 3-month cycle, and so we are hoping to have it launched and available for general usage by Jan 2023. So definitely a new year gift in waiting for all of you, right? So we will announce it as soon as the GA happens. The same is the case with our migration tool. The idea is that we are helping you migrate the ICOs that were created on process orchestration as integration flows in integration suite, right? So the whole automation of this, converting these ICOs into integration flows is something that is being introduced with the help of migration tool. Again, the migration tool has its own sets of rules that we have, or rather, let me call it templates that have been introduced. As of today, in the beta, it is also in its beta version available to a limited set of customers. And by the time frame that I mentioned earlier, Jan 2023, we see the launch of general availability of both assessment as well as migration tool that helps you, taking you through the first 2 phases of any planning exercise, as well as the next step, which is migrating the interfaces, right? Then after the migration, after your implementation cycles are done, definitely one of the key requirements or key step in your process of this whole evolution journey is validating that the interfaces are running according to the expectations. And here we definitely see a lot of our customers coming back to us saying, asking for regression test tool. While SAP has not specifically provided these tools as part of SAP Integration Suite, we have our partners, Int4 and FIGAF, who have been constantly working and co-engineering with us. Both these partners are, have been founded by community experts who have well established themselves in the SAP integration space for multiple years now, and both these partners have been working very closely with our development team to build tools that support our move customers, right, migrating from process orchestration to integration suite. So we have the regression test tools offered by them, which we are recommending for our customers as well. And then finally, we are also, I did mention about the edge integration cell, the hybrid deployment of runtime. That is also something that we are, going to launch in 2023 timeframe. So it is also in its beta phase at this point in time, but we are seeing that this will also accelerate some of the expectations of our customers in the near future. With that being said, I would also like to emphasize that we have provided a lot of self-service content right? Tools have been mentioned on the left-hand side. We did talk about the different phases that are being supported with the different tools that we have. But in addition to that, for process orchestration, a person, an integration developer with rich process orchestration background and skill set, we are definitely looking at them reskilling themselves, or rather upskilling themselves, not reskilling, but upskilling themselves to the newer technology stack by providing them with multiple guides, starting with, and I would like to emphasize on the migration methodology or migration guides, which captures the how the concepts were implemented. The concepts like security, connectivity, for example, were implemented in the process orchestration and how it is being recommended to be done in the cloud integration world, right? So it draws a comparison between the deployments that existed in process orchestration to integration suite as of today, also to the security aspects, how you can ensure you know, creating key value pairs, how you can manage your certificates, how you can ensure, you know, connectivity to SAP as well as non-SAP systems. And we then capture information about monitoring as well as logging in this migration guides, right? The differences between the two, or rather a comparison between the two, can be found in these guides that have been well captured. And it is also open to community, right? So if there are anything that you would like to enhance or improve or add into it, you are also welcome as community experts to join in our open documentation program and contribute into this. So just adding that. In addition, we do have you know, best practices on how you can build performant integration flows. We have captured this as our best practices design guidelines, as well as we have a documentation on you know, the different performance related aspects and how you can use the different features of cloud integration to create efficient process for your organization. So these are definitely tools and content documentation that we have been working on, right, to help our implementation developers, the integration developers, to create improved integrations. In addition to all of these, we also have services and support from SAP itself, right? We do have the paid consulting services from SAP as well as the partners in the ecosystem, right? But in addition, we have also what we call as the migration factory for SAP BTP. So this there is a qualification process associated. So for those customers who have qualified our expectations, we provide a free service, 2 to 3 week engagement, where we help you assess your landscape and help you in planning and scoping exercise, right, which basically can be used to further create your, you know, understand the migration effort, as well as create a kind of a roadmap on how you execute the whole migration. Okay, then I would also like to emphasize on one more aspect for you to get started, which is the free tier option, which is available for those who are not aware of this yet. It is an option which is available for you to enable SAP Integration Suite for free for a period of 90 days, which helps you in experiencing the whole SAP Integration Suite, the features, the capabilities that we have been talking about, the ease of use on the Integration Suite. If you're not yet familiar with it, I would definitely recommend using this free tier option to get started, as well as the capabilities. They will go GA in Jan. So it is also a good time for you to start, you know, experimenting, understanding, trying out the different capabilities, as well as when the tools are available. The migration specific tools that I was referring to are available. You can also assess your landscape and try out migrating a couple of your integration interfaces, to Integration Suite, and basically get a good hands-on. The advantage of the free tier option in comparison to trial is basically you get all the SLAs like any other edition, any other tenant, if you were on BTP account, if you had your own BTP account, basically. And the other advantage is that after 90 days, if you want to continue using the same tenant, that option will be there, and you will not lose out on the POCs, the prototypes, or the experiments that you were doing on Integration Suite so far. But you can continue with them, and further, if it is meeting your expectations, if it's meeting your needs, you can also go take it into your productive cycles and go live with it, right? So it definitely creates a good path for you to move on from experimenting to actually using it for your productive requirements. Okay, so with that, let me conclude the session for the day. Considering the time, also we have 5 more minutes. Toros, back to you, and if there are any specific questions we would like to address.
Okay. Thank you so much, Arti, and thank you so much, Damien, for 2 amazing sessions. We do have several questions in the chat, so we can start with one from Naveen. Can CPI JMS be external for other providers to load messages? And is this something on the roadmap?
So CPI JMS it has been provided to be used in the context of the integration flows which run on cloud integration itself. What we do provide is an option to leverage the MQP adapter or the MQTT adapter and connect into any other queues of your choice, that you are consuming otherwise. The JMS queues that are being provided with cloud integration is specifically in the context of the asynchronous scenarios that we see are very commonly used by our integration developers, but not meant for external usage.
Okay. If Arti and Damien, if you guys want to stick around, we can go past the time allotted, because it looks like there's a number of questions. If you guys have any additional questions, please do type them. We'll try to get to as many as we can in the time allotted. There's one from Mofizur. Is CPI integrated with Git, or will it have its own repositories? Also, what is the recommended system landscape for CPI? Should we have to procure licenses for dev, QA, SDG, and product separately?
Okay, there are 2 different questions, right? So from a CPI perspective, the reason you would be asking if there is a Git repository is for creating, I would assume, the versions, right, and maintaining kind of I don't know, I'm assuming DevOps kind of a use case. So if that is the case, what we do have is a project at SAP called the Piper, and we contribute a lot into this. So it helps in CI/CD practices and DevOps practices that you may have. It also involves how you can, basically connect into Git and create, maintain your Git projects, right? So if that is of help, please do look up the SAP Piper project. PIPER, Piper project, right? So that may be helpful. The second thing I heard Toros you mention is about the landscape recommendation. So from SAP, for sure, we do recommend that you keep your development and productive environment separate. So at least the bare minimum we would recommend is 2 different tenants. And yes, from an integration suite commercialization perspective, we have 2 specific, aspects based on which the billing happens. One is the tenants, and the second is the message consumption. Right. So again, this is something that I can share a link to on the commercial aspect. It will be helpful to look it up. So in this particular case, when we say multi-tier or at least two landscapes, we are talking about two different tenants which needs to be purchased individually. Right. And in addition, if you see a need in your organization to have more tenants, then yes, this will each of these tenants will come with its own cost.
Okay, and then Antonio, if I can paraphrase your question and tell me if I'm wrong, can the partner migration assessment tool and the migration tool, are they ready to be used?
The partner Taurus or?
Well, no, I think the tools you had referred to, I think it's from FIGAF and INT4. I'm assuming that's what, Antonio, you're referring to. If that's not the question as it's written, migration assessment tool and migration tool are ready to be used as SAP partners. So I'm.
Okay, maybe I will interpret it differently. Then in that case, Taurus, I would assume that the question is, as SAP partners, can the tools be used, right? So in this particular case, we do not restrict the partners from using the tools, right? So once it goes GA, it will be available across the tenants. For SAP partners, the approach we have in mind is that you use the customer's tenant itself, the integration suite tenant itself, which will have the assessment and migration tool available. That will help you in connecting their tenant to their process orchestration system. And what it means is basically you have that well-defined configuration between the integration suite tenant and the PO development or the productive landscape that they have in place. And then you can obviously, ideally, it should be the development environment of PO, right? And then you can not just do an assessment, but also a migration which is specific to that particular customer that you are supporting in the journey. So yeah, that would be the recommendation, if that makes sense.
So Antonio, I hope we answered your question. One from Naga. What is the SAP's recommendation of I guess regular CF choice, Azure, AWS, or GCP? Do you release all updates of CF at the same time?
For us, we are being agnostic as a service. We are not really, giving any priority or preference to any of the, hyperscaler. We are seeing them all with the same lens. And for us, we do update all the CFs at the same time. There is no specific, priority that we are assigning to the hyperscalers.
Okay. And then one from Raphael, is INT4 and FIGAF separate licenses from Integration Suite?
Yes, that would be correct. So in the case of the solutions that are being offered from FIGAF and Info, we have them up on the SAP store. You can look them up and make your decision on which suits your requirements the best.
And then there's one, will MSMQ adapter be included?
This at this point in time, we do not have a specific view on MSMQ. Let me put it that way. We from what we have seen in the market, AMQP and MQTT has addressed most of the use cases, and if there are something which have been left out, we see them as one of these variants which are being supported. But if you think there is a specific queuing capability, rather queue, which is not being supported and you want it explicitly, then I would definitely recommend that you add it to our influence page, right? Because this influence program is taken very seriously at in our organization, and from an engineering perspective, we do take this request that flew in from the influence program to also prioritize when we look at the backlogs and we look at the road mapping exercises whenever we do that. So do please add in your suggestions, add in your feedback or your requirements to the influence page. I'll share the link.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then one from Naganath, and again, I am going to maybe paraphrase or add what I think it is. Any plans to make available the tool logging, tracing, payload search, and message retry?
I would assume here it is an extension to what we already have, right? So we do have I mean, we do recommend, again, because of the data, how long we support the data to be stored from a logging and tracing perspective. It is, if I am correct, let me look it up. It's around 30 days. We don't store it beyond that. And for auditing purposes, etc., obviously, this needs a longer time period, right? So we do recommend that third-party auditing logging service is used for maintaining it for a longer time, for longevity, and for repurposing it as required. But from a payload search perspective, we have introduced certain features on our monitoring message monitoring already, but I do know that there are more asks on evolving it, on improving it, and enhancing it. Again, the same recommendation. If you have some feedback, if you have some specific requirement, please look up our influence page where we already have some requirements from other customers added in. If you can upvote them, or you can also add your new requirements to this. We will definitely start. I mean, we have started considering some of these requirements already, have added them into our roadmap. You may also see that reflected, and we will continue to do that in the future as well.
Okay, excellent. I think we've exhausted most of the questions. Please let us know if we forgot one of your questions. So Naga and a few others who have asked, yes, the presentation material for today's sessions will be available. They will be uploaded, including the recording for today's session will all be made available in the next several hours. If you guys have any additional questions for either of our presenters, either Damien or Arti, please do type your question in the chat. And if we have missed a question, we apologize for that. Please do let us know what questions we missed.
And from my end, thank you, Toros. Thank you, everybody, for being such wonderful listeners. And thank you, Damien, especially for taking the time and sharing your experiences and sharing how Harrod is looking from a future perspective as well to this audience, right? It really gives a good perspective on how decisions can be made, as well as on the different approaches the audience can also take when it comes to customer evolution, right? It needn't be a single pick and move kind of an experience, but it can also be much more personalized and with complete phases where you are looking at digital transformation.
Yeah,
Thanks a lot for that.
Yes, I extend that as well. Thank you so much, Damien, for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us. Awesome presentation. Thank you, Arti, for your session. As always, an amazing session, a lot of information for all of our participants. And I want to thank all of you guys for taking time out of your busy schedule, even though we've run 7 minutes over the allotted time. Thank you for sticking around with us to hopefully getting all of your questions answered, and maybe creating some new questions. So I have put the contact information for all of our presenters, our SAP presenters, in the chat. Please do reach out to us if you have any questions on anything for today or any other webinars that we've done in the past. And with that, have a great morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you're located. Thank you so much, guys.
Have a nice day. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Toros. Thank you, Arti.
Thank you, Damien.